Episode 2.
Yeah.
We made it.
We made it.
Episode 1 hasn't officially dropped yet. But so we're just filming this one just in case we do get at least 5 viewers for the first episode. And we're covering the topic faith. Whether it's religious faith, a belief in God, a trust and confidence in God, whether it's faith in oneself, faith in relationships, I guess just faith in general.
It's funny, it's like it's got such a biblical connotation to it, but you don't even have to be religious to use the word faith or understand what faith is. You know what I mean? Like we've been using that word since we were kids, right? And like even when I know, like you were telling me earlier about the definitions and stuff as well, there's so many different ways to describe faith.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So it's like it's got a religious context to it, but then it's just so open, right?
Yeah. I was telling my wife this morning when I was actually, I don't know if it was this morning or a couple of nights ago when I was doing a bit of research for the chat today. And I was telling her, I said, I think Christians, because I can only speak from the Christian's perspective because I was raised, Christian. I believe that religious people have done such an amazing job at tarnishing the word, sometimes faith.
Yeah.
Because I can remember being a kid and, being scared or worried about something, and my parents just be like, look, you just got to have faith. You just got to believe. But that was it. And I would just leave it. I'd be like, oh, okay, cool. But as I grew up, I'm like, what does that even mean to just believe it? And I think when you tie that approach, it just gets very complicated, especially when you have, say, pretty prominent atheists like Richard Dawkins, who define faith as the belief in something without evidence. And so faith gets this bashing that it's some kind of religious word, that it's only to be used in the context of religion or in the context of believing in a God, where that's not true at all. And I was explaining it to you just before when we were chatting, how the Latin root for the word faith, fides, I think that's how you pronounce it, fides or fides, F-I-D-E-S, is essentially to have trust and confidence in something, to have a belief in something because of trust and confidence. And so I really was thinking about it. I was just trying to think of little examples in my head. And it's like, well, if I was at the shops with my kids and I needed to go to the toilet and I knew I was going to be a little while or even a long while, would I leave my daughter or my son or my kids just with a stranger outside? And I'd be like, yeah, I got faith that everything's going to be okay to them. And the reality is that I wouldn't, because I don't have any trust or confidence in that stranger outside to take care of my kids. There's no evidence to give me the suggestion or idea that my kids are going to be okay. And so that's what was challenging for me when I started to really think about, am I only a Christian because of my South American roots, because of what my parents had taught me? And so then breaking all that down, and the thing that I feared was, what if I tear all this down and then I come out of it and I don't believe in God anymore because there's no evidence for me to believe in that? And so when I started researching, that's when I realized that for me, Christianity is an evidence-based religion. It is an evidence-based faith. And that's why I believe it. I don't just believe it for the sake of it. And I'm sure we'll get into it, there's lots of different things that I came to the realization, the conclusion as to why I decided to believe in God, truly for myself and in the Christian faith. But at the same time, I totally understand and sympathize with people that although those things might be enough for me, perhaps it won't be enough for them. And I'm cool with it. And so, that's how I've started to look at faith. Because I did for a second think, maybe faith is just a belief in something without evidence. But that isn't faith. That's blind faith. And that is incredibly dangerous. If you just believe in something for the sake of it and you don't have any confidence in it, any trust in it, because of the lack of evidence, that is very dangerous. And I can happily say for myself, my belief in God isn't just, I just believe it to believe it. No, I've got evidence for myself as the reason to why I believe in it.
Yeah. And the problem is, right, there's evidence every single day in our lives, but it's just a matter of if we see it or not.
Yeah.
Because sometimes people want a concrete piece of evidence where they can physically touch and hold. but evidence comes in many different forms, right?
Yeah, man.
And, I was talking to Adam before the session as well, and we were talking about just like, difficult times which every single person faces. And I've come to a point in my life where, I'm embracing the hard times just as much as the good times. And it took me a long time to kind of get there, and it took me a lot of traumatic events to happen for me to get there.
Yeah.
But, going back rewind 5-6 years ago, I was really deep in that victim mentality where like the world was against me, everything was going wrong. And a few things happened that just kind of shifted me over, where I just started changing the lens that I was wearing and seeing the world. And then I realized like, man, like these things that are happening that are causing hardship and struggles, they're actually gifts. They're building my faith. They're making my faith more and more concrete. And I'm starting to see that evidence through these hard times. And that's what's making me more grateful for them. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm just as grateful for those bad times as I am for the good times now. And I can hand and heart say that too. Like, but like, seeing what happens and what comes, the fruit that forms from those hard times, that's the evidence. Seeing how I have grown as a person, the resilience, my closeness to God after a really difficult season, that's the evidence. But it doesn't always have to be a concrete piece. And I think that's where science and religion kind of get into conflict, because science, they always want to see something.
Yeah.
They always want to see something concrete, but it's
not how the
not
world
always
works.
how it works. Yeah.
No,
the universe is a lot bigger than you and I. Like there's things that we don't understand and we're not meant to understand. I think the problem is when you try to understand God, but really like we're just humans. We're not meant to understand something that's so divine and in a completely different dimension than we are right now.
I think that's a really good point, man. And I was talking to Timmy during the week, and I was saying to him, I also believe that, people developing beliefs, depending on what narrative you're trying to paint in your own mind, that's going to greatly influence it. Like, even if you were, say a really prominent, really devout atheist in your thoughts, in your beliefs, you're like, there is no chance God exists. There is zero evidence for it. I'm not a believer. Even if a man came down from the sky on a cloud and then sat and spoke to that person, in my opinion, will still be like, I still don't believe because that wasn't God. That was an episode of psychosis. I'm actually losing my mind because these things aren't real. So even the evidence that people personally want, I think even if that was to happen, they still wouldn't believe it because they don't want to believe, or maybe they're not ready to believe, or just they'll see the shit and the torment and the pain and the suffering that happens in the world. And they're like, man, see that? If God existed, why is there starving children? If God exists, why is there all this pain and suffering, with children or adults or anyone, parents, grandparents getting sick? Why are there wars? Why are there all these things happening? And so they turn towards the suffering, the pain, and be like, that is why God doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And I just think that's a very shallow perspective. That's just a very shallow way to look at things, because again, the world, the universe is so much more complex that we can even possibly imagine, and God included in that.
Yeah.
And
it's yin and yang, really. Like you need the good with the bad. You need the good with the evil in the world. Do you know what I mean? Because if you don't have those bad experiences in the world, you have nothing, you have no reason to seek faith. And faith is something that you have to seek. You have to acquire it.
Yeah.
It's like a game and you're leveling up, right? Your faith just gets stronger and stronger through experiences. But if everything was like, rainbows and unicorns in the world, we wouldn't have to seek it.
no,
Do you know what I mean? We need the darkness to find the light.
I agree.
It's yin and yang. They go hand in hand.
Well, resistance, man, it creates growth. It really does, psychologically, spiritually, physically. You need some kind of resistance to grow and adapt, and you can either choose to either learn from that experience or not. And even I was speaking, to my cousin's wife, Jess, today about the whole ordeal, about his whole experience, about what's happening right now.
Yeah.
And, in my mind, I was just thinking, fuck, like this woman is just so brave. Like she's so strong and so tough. And then she was even saying stuff like, but God works in mysterious ways, and there will be a silver lining to this. It's just a matter of it allowing it to occur. And I just thought that was so beautiful. I thought that was so special. And even when I went and saw my cousin in the hospital, I was just so inspired by him.
Yeah.
I was just in awe of his confidence. And I know he was suffering and still in pain, but he was just saying stuff, but we got to keep going. We got to pray. We got to stay strong. We got to have faith in this. And I just thought that was so beautiful, and this is a man that, has 2 children, a wife, so much at stake, so much pain.
Yeah.
But he still hasn't turned around and collapsed on his beliefs. And I know he's going to be fine, and he's going to absolutely soldier through this whole thing. And he's just going to come out just with this even greater faith, just like how you described.
Yeah.
Even when you kind of touched on last episode, about when you were in that holding cell.
Yeah.
And then you felt like you were having a panic attack. And so the first thing that you turned to was to God. But then through that whole experience, what you've been able to create, what you've been able to grow, and how now, because of that experience you went through, you now have evidence to believe and trust yourself, to have confidence in yourself. Like the stuff that you went through, man, it would have broken so many people, and rightly so. But you didn't allow it to break you because of your perspective. And that is so important in all of this. It is perspective.
Do you know what's crazy? I wasn't going to bring that up, but it's a good point, because that's my true, I guess that was my turning point where I really understood what the word faith meant, right? A lot of things we go through ups and downs in life, but everyone has that pivotal moment. And that was my pivotal moment. And I don't know if I went into much detail with the last episode, but basically I got into a car accident. I think I was saying last episode as well, where I wasn't doing anything illegal, wasn't doing anything wrong. It was just during the day, driving in the gym, or I think I was driving to jiu-jitsu, I can't remember. But the outcome of it, I went to court for a good 12 months. It was going back and forth, and my lawyers were trying to fight to plead not guilty, because they were saying I didn't break any road rules. But then it got to the point where it was dragging out, it was costing more money, it was becoming really traumatic for myself, and also the person that got injured from the accident as well, because they were a younger person too. And it was getting to the point where I was just falling out of alignment. I was thinking what does God want me to do? Because this was my pride and ego. Because when I was a kid, if I was getting in trouble for doing something that I shouldn't have got in trouble for, I would still kind of always stand up for myself. Yeah. And even if it meant getting in more trouble, it always had that, I don't know if that's Scorpio mentality or whatever, my back's against the wall, I'd always be kind of fighting for my rights as a kid. And I could feel that during this whole court hearing and stuff as well. I was no, I didn't do anything wrong. What could I have done differently? I'm not going to, take the blame for this. But then it got to a point where I was sitting down, I think it was a week before the court hearing, after a year after the accident. And I remember I was I need to tune out everyone's noise. I need to tune out the lawyer's noise. I need to tune out my family's noise. Even my ego, I had to tune that out as well, and my pride. And what I did was I just went away for 2 days, and I went off grid, no phone, nothing. And I just, for 2 days, I meditated, prayed, journaled for 2 days. And then my intuition was just guiding me and telling me, what, things don't happen for a reason. Things happen for all reasons.
Yeah.
Right? It wasn't just about me. It was about this boy and his family. It was about, even my family and people around me, and allowing them to see my faith in God through this process. And there was a lot of things that kind of happened where I could see God's hand playing through this. Even the boys' family were strong Christians as well. And that got back to me, that they were part of the Anglican church community and stuff. And so going by my intuition, I just said, you know what, I'm going to do a full 180. I'm going to plead guilty just to put an end to this. And I'm going to get through this and allow God to kind of hold my hand through this, whatever the outcome was. And it ended up being a 10-year criminal record. I lost my license for 15 months and I get it back in 2 weeks now. So that's the 15 months almost done. And I had an intensive corrections order for 9 months, right? So that I didn't have to go to prison, but it was one under it. I had to go see a parole officer and stuff as well, which was, at the time, I was thinking, this is pretty big for this event. And as my lawyer said, like, the problem with the justice system is that it's not very just. They just want to see an outcome. They see what happened and they want an outcome out of it. Okay. And basically, I remember after the court hearing and I was issued with the punishments, I went home and I think I was playing the guitar and just chilling out the front and just sitting down and listening to my thoughts, and I could hear God's voice. And that's when I really understood what faith meant. And it was God just telling me, like, it's going to be okay. Everything is going to be okay. And I trusted it.
Yeah.
I trusted it. I didn't know what tomorrow was going to look like. I didn't know what 1 year was going to look like. But hearing that just soothed me and took all my anxiety, all my fear away, right? And I learned something that day. I learned that you can't have faith and fear. You can only have one or the other, right? They're the two opposites. If you say you have faith, but then you start to fear and have a bit of doubt, that's not faith anymore. Faith is just dusting your hands off and saying, God, take this from me. This is yours. Do you know what I mean? And every time, and you know, we are human beings. Fear is going to creep in.
Yeah.
Doubt is going to creep in. Uncertainty is going to creep in. But every time you hear it, you come back to your relationship with God. Key word is that relationship.
Yeah. That's,
you know, talking to him like you're going to your dad to ask your dad to help you, or your brother to help you, or your friend to help you. And as soon as that fear comes back in, you just give it to God. And the thing is, the way I see it and visualize it, because I'm a real visual person, I always see God's hand just there, always there, no matter what I'm doing. If I could have the most sinful day and God's hand's just there.
Yeah.
And he wants me to just take it. It's always there. No matter what's happening in my life, it's always there. But it's just a matter of people look up and see it and give it to him. And man, he got me through that 15 months. You know, get the license back next month. The criminal record doesn't bother me. Run my own business. But, you know, like, and it's something I don't really say as much, but like, you know, every time I pray for that boy and his family. I don't know them personally and stuff as well. There's things that I want to do moving forward with that, but I pray for them as well. And it keeps coming back to that thought of like, you know, things happen for all reasons. And, you know, long story short, I look back at the last 15 months and the things that I have acquired from this experience, I can't put a price on it.
yeah.
My relationship with God and how it's developed in the last 15 months, I can't put a price on it. And even though I wish, I can't speak on behalf of the other party, and I wish the best for them, but when I look at my side of it and what's happened, I can look at it with so much gratitude because I know that I wouldn't change a thing about how close I am to God right now, if that makes sense. And yeah, that's the last 15 months is when I really understood the word faith. We use the word faith since we were young. We've heard about it. Your parents just say, have faith. That's it. But sometimes God puts experiences in your life to really show you how to have faith.
I agree, man.
Yeah.
And that's why with faith, when we're talking about it, is having a belief in something because of having confidence and trust. Something that makes up that evidence is those personal experiences. So like you having that personal experience of that traumatic event is evidence for you in itself. And again, depending on your narrative and what you want to tell yourself in life, you could have easily just gone, you know, fuck the world, fuck religion, fuck my faith, but you didn't.
Yeah.
Like you grew from it and you used it. And I don't know, I think that's tremendous, man. And even for me, with my own anxieties, because I do think about that a lot, where a lot of the times I'm really scared and worried about my own physical health.
Yeah.
Because the last thing in the world that I want to experience or see, so I have a huge fear of loss, of losing things. And, you know, this is stuff we've discussed about before in the past. And so surrendering control to something, surrendering saying, okay, I can't control this. In the beginning, that was really, really hard because I would always pray and ask for things to be okay. And now something that I pray for is still now more guidance and the perspective of it all. Like, help me understand, help me learn from what's happening in my life, help me grow from these things. But I don't specifically ask, can this anxiety please go away? Can this health anxiety go away? And I recently had a conversation with my doctor because I was panicking again about some other health concerns with my body, and I was freaking out about it all. And I love my doctor, and she was so honest with me because she came at me with so much love and kindness, but also she was pretty stern.
Yeah.
And she was saying to me, she's like, I've done every test for you top to bottom. There's nothing wrong with you. You are so healthy. Because what I was experiencing was I'd start to body scan. I would scan any little thing. If I'd get a headache, I'm like, fuck, is that a brain tumor? If my balls would feel sore, I'd be like, oh shit. I'd be petrified to go to the bathroom because I didn't want to see any blood in my urine. I'd start to panic. I'd start to worry.
Yeah.
And then my doctor said something to me the other day, and then she's like, I need you to trust me. And there was just something about those words. And I started to put all these things into context. And this is the same doctor that spoke to me about God when she didn't have to.
Yeah.
And she said to me, she's like, I don't want you wasting your peak life right now, your peak moments with fear that some things, you're waiting for something bad to happen. She's like, you need to drop the checking, stop checking. And that requires, and I was like, and I stepped back from that conversation, and I was like, you know what? I need to look at this objectively, like an objective person would, because my brain is incredibly irrational. And I asked myself, I'm like, do I have a good doctor? And I'm like, yeah, I do. And does my doctor always look out for me? She's like, she absolutely does. She always does. And I'm like, do I have evidence to believe her? Is there evidence to support the idea that I should trust her and I should have confidence in her? And I'm like, yeah, I've got a ton. And I'm like, then why aren't you doing it? And that just really like clicked like the other day to me. And I was like, okay. And that's why when you just said, you know, you can't have faith and fear at the same time, I'm like, well, I kind of get that. You know, it makes so much sense. And that's why sometimes fear, man, like when you really look at it, like what's driving it, a lot of the times, majority of the times, it's that fear of loss.
Yeah.
And it really gets in the way of it going, you need to take the steering wheel here. You need to take control right now and not leave it in God's hands. Because if you leave it in someone else's hands, disaster is going to strike. And that's simply not true.
Yeah.
Because when I did go through a health scare at the start of the year and everything came out fine, my wife said to me, she goes, everyone told you that everything was going to be okay except your brain. And although my brain causes me so much pain and suffering at times, I understand it's just an organ and it's just trying to help me. But man, it gets in the way so many times of me actually just having confidence and trust in myself and in others and surrendering my problems to God. But it is something that I'm getting better at. And that's why I really loved what you just said before. Like, faith is a skill. Like, it's something that you need to work at. And it's so true. Because if we look at faith as that umbrella term of confidence and trust, well, you need to build up that trust through actions. You need to build up the tally in like, okay, well, how do I build confidence? Like, even like, say someone's starting jiu-jitsu, they walk in with no confidence. They're so scared, they're so anxious, they're so worried. And I tell them like, hey man, look, what you have to do is just turn up. Just turn up. That's all you have to do. And you see them go through this journey 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, and you see their confidence just grow and grow and grow. And it's like, yeah, well, if you look at your actions, you kept turning up. You surrendered to the idea that you're meant to be amazing at this. You surrendered to the idea that this is going to be the worst thing in the world. And you just trusted the process because of the evidence that was there for you.
Do you remember what you said to me before my first comp?
No.
You say it to a lot of the boys, I think, before comps, trust your jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, that's
You always say it, man.
Yeah.
And like, you know, trusting is faith.
Yes.
Trusting is faith. Trust your jiu-jitsu. That's what you said to me before my camp. I lost, but
And then, like, was that the one where you nearly went home?
no, that was the second one. The first one was first one was up by 6 points, and then I tried to do some fucking cartwheel shit, and then got armbarred in like 30 seconds to go.
I was like, fucking Shane. Oh, man.
Lost faith in the last 30 seconds.
I was like, dude, oh yeah, you were crushing it.
That's not even my jiu. I don't know if I fucking did a cartwheel, bro. But, yeah, but it's so true, man. When you say that, like, trust your jiu-jitsu is having faith in the skills that you've acquired since you started jiu-jitsu.
Correct.
Having faith in God and trusting in God is trusting all the, I guess, traits that you've acquired in your life journey, right? And I love the saying, you've survived 100% of the problems you've ever faced.
I love that.
So damn true.
That's beautiful.
Right? It's so damn true. And like, I don't know if she's going to like me talking about this on the podcast, but she's not here. Lorna, right before I got here, Lorna was taking the dogs for a walk, and then because she suffers from anxiety. And, me saying here, like, hey, you can either have faith or fear, you can't have both. It's easier said than done for someone who doesn't have anxiety. Correct. Anxiety is a bitch, you know what I mean? And she suffers from it. And she, I think she lost a client for personal training that they came in and then they didn't follow through. And she was just stressing about income and worrying about it. And I could tell she was trying to hold back tears, but she didn't want to cry in front of me because she knew I was going to come in here and film, and she didn't want to put me in that headspace. But I saw her, I stopped her and I said, hey, let's talk. And then she just started crying, and then I just gave her a big hug. And I love that I have a partner who's God-fearing. Like when I thought about my future partner, it's funny, I know we're going to talk about relationships down the track, but I didn't put has to believe in God on my list. I said she has to be spiritual and she has to be constantly working on her personal development, but a God-fearing person, someone who believed in God, wasn't on my list. Yeah. But man, it's such a beautiful thing when you have a partner who you can talk to about God, because it just alleviates all pressure when you talk about God. Anyway, I just said to her, it's the exact same thing. I go, think about every single problem you've ever faced. Think about every single time you felt like this. God has stepped up. He's come in clutch right at the end and always helped you. There's no need to cry about this. Just leave it in God's hands and just smile and just know that this is the flow of life and you're going to be fine. And I think she really needed to hear that. She sent me a really lovely message right before we started filming and stuff as well. But it's funny, like when you really understand what faith in God is, and you really start to change the lens that you see your life in, and understand that God put you through all those ups and downs, all those different seasons to help you build that skill of faith. It just takes so much pressure away from you. And sometimes you need to have those conversations and remind yourself, you know what I mean? Like when you have those voices in your head, you need to have those conversations, just like your mate will be talking to you as well. You're just reminding yourself, hey, this is my mind talking. What should I do? Put my faith in God. And we need those reminders. And the thing is, we are human beings. We're going to go through those moments and stuff as well, where things are going to creep in. Our past experiences are going to creep in and create self-doubt and pull us away. But in the end, just like we trust our jiu-jitsu, just got to trust the process, trust in God.
Yeah, I really like that whole idea that, again, that faith is skill building. And if we look at all those, whether they're ups or downs in life, well, let's just call them the challenges we've experienced in life, they are opportunities to build that faith spiritually and personally. And a lot of the times we don't look at them like that. We just see them as problems, things that have occurred, and we're like, fuck, man, like my life's shit now. But it's like that Ryan Holiday's book, I believe it's called like The Obstacle is the Way. Like it's a book based around stoicism. If we looked at these obstacles as opportunities to build and grow, then you walk away with a new skill set. And yes, the anxieties are going to creep in, the doubts, the uncertainties are going to creep in, especially, I can attest to that. And it just knocks us off the path. But I find as the more that you practice, the more that you create this skill, the easier it is to get back on the path. Because I even wrote it on my notes, because I was going to ask what actions or like what behaviors do you think builds confidence in oneself?
Confidence in yourself or like your faith in general, or just in general?
In general. Like what behaviors, what things, what habits do you think builds confidence and trust in life?
Gratitude.
Yeah?
100%. That's above all, gratitude. And then I think things kind of stem down from that. Gratitude and then acceptance, right? So when you're faced with hardship, right, that's the times where, because it's easy to feel confident when life is great. It's easy to feel confident. It's easy to have faith. But during hard times, that's where people's confidence starts to decline, right? That's when it starts to waver. That's where your faith wavers. But having that lens of gratitude in everything in life, right? And the word gratitude is so fluffy these days. Like people, like, oh, what are you grateful for? Write a gratitude note. But really, gratitude goes so much deeper, right? That's why when I tell my clients as well when they do their gratitude notes, be really specific. Don't just say, I'm grateful for the sunshine, or I'm grateful for my mum or my brother or whatever. Be really specific. Break it down to a T. What is it about that you're grateful for? And that, again, like faith, is skill building, right? Because when you first start doing it, it seems really kind of fluffy and you're just kind of doing it for the sake of doing it. It's like when your parents tell you, oh, just have faith. It seems kind of really watered down. But then when you build that skill and start applying it to things, that's when you really start to strengthen that skill. Now, I think gratitude is something that really builds confidence in yourself, because it's like an armor when you have gratitude for everything, even the not so good times, right? It's like an armor, and you start to become bulletproof because all of a sudden life is just throwing bombs at you and things just bounce off you. Because it's like, actually the best way to describe it is like that school bully, right? Someone's bullying someone at school, and if they're showing that they're affected by it, that bully's going to keep going.
Yeah.
But if the bully is like, insulting you, and then you smile and just kind of nod your head and give them a thumbs up and keep walking on and get along with your day, they're going to stop, right? Now, life isn't going to stop giving you hardships, but then you're going to start approaching it in a different way.
That's it, yeah.
Yeah.
I love that.
For me, it's gratitude. Okay. What about for you?
I think gratitude's beautiful, man, because, again, like let's just say, and it's like about being honest. Like you can't say, oh, I'm grateful for the body that I have, and then every 10 seconds you're checking your reflection in a mirror. Because you're constantly checking to see, oh, am I happy with this body? Mm-hmm. Am I happy with what I have in front?
It's like what you talked about last episode, how your actions aren't meeting your words. Yeah.
Well, it's like there's this quote from Mark Freeman, who wrote the book, The Mind Workout, where he says, do your actions show you trust yourself? Or do you treat yourself like an incompetent employee you need to micromanage and keep away from important tasks? And he talks about in this book, The Mind Workout, he calls it the trust score. And it's about building trust in yourself, like imagining that inside your brain, there's like a little bank in there with all these little bankers. And every time you display acts of trust, like certain behavior, certain actions, your trust score goes up. And so when you do experience those moments of self-doubt, uncertainty, you can go to that bank and pull from the trust. You know what I mean? It's like, I've built trust in here.
That's really cool.
And so it'd be like, well, what builds that trust? And again, I think a lot of it is how you interact with those internal experiences and external experiences. And so a simple thing might be, let's just say you post something online. Let's say you post something, a photo of you and your partner online, and then you're checking to see who's liked your post, who's commented on your post. So that's a behavior that would take points away from your trust score, because you're looking for validation from others. And then that's showing the true reason as why you posted something, because you need validation from others. So those kinds of behaviors, so social media is such an amazing tool where it can do some pretty tremendous things, and it can do some really disastrous things. So I like to see it now is that if you're, and Mark has taught me this, is that every time you post on social media, what are you trying to give? So you switch the fuel from fear to giving. What can I give today? What can I give in this post? Is there like a tool that I can give in this? Is there a really good experience that this might help or comfort someone? Or am I only posting this to get something? So you're switching the fuel from giving to getting.
That's really cool.
And it's amazing. And so every time I see his stories or his posts, I'm really observant. I'm like, wow, there's just so many good things in this post. And it's so helpful. And I can see the giving in that. And so for me, it's like, okay, what actions are about giving rather than getting? Rather than trying to get certainty for my anxieties, can I give myself some self-love and surrender that to God? So like switching that fuel, like changing the perspective. And also, like I used to compete a lot in jiu-jitsu, but it was a lot of the times fueled by my insecurities because I was always so worried because I was a blue belt when I started Wolf Life Academy. And I'm like, fuck man, like I'm a blue belt. I'm not even a purple belt. I'm not even a brown belt. I'm not even a black belt. What am I going to do? And I'm like, you know what I'm going to have to do? I'm going to have to win some pretty serious competitions to put my name out there, at least to be like, all right, he might be a blue belt, but at least he competes. At least he's won nationals and he's done well at Pan Pacs and all that.
Yeah.
So that was what I allowed then was the fear to dictate my actions rather than my values. And so that wasn't having any confidence or faith in myself that I could run this academy just as a blue belt and I don't need to win any championships. Rather, I'm like, okay, I've done this. Now I need to win these things because if not, And then you can see the fear fueling that and the uncertainty and me trying to control the situation. And when you allow coping, controlling, or checking compulsions to, I guess, rule your world, that is a disastrous way to build trust and confidence in yourself because you are just after controlling the uncertainty of it all. And so
you find you constantly, when you're in that mindset, you're constantly always chasing.
Yeah.
You never feel fulfilled.
No, man.
You know what I mean? Because like once the validation goes, you need it. You still need it. It's like a drug. Yeah. You keep needing it, right? But then when you seek that validation internally and you're self-validating, you're doing that for yourself, it's almost such a peaceful feeling. But when it's external, man, it's a drug. You're chasing it all the time. You need another hit. I was going to ask Adam as well. Like Adam, like being someone who isn't Christian, what's your ideas of faith and how do you seek faith?
Yeah, it's interesting. Faith in myself, it's sort of just come from learned experience. And I guess it goes to what Jonny was saying about trust. I used to do a lot of acting and like for theatre in front of the screen. Every time I did that, I'd shit myself. And every time I went for a new audition or every time I, went to get up on stage in front of people, I'd convince myself, nah, I'm so scared. I'm never going to do this again. And then I kept getting up and kept doing it over and over again. And the stages got bigger and bigger and in front of more and more people. And I think that started building this trust in myself that then gave me that armor that you were talking about, Shane, with gratitude. Because I'd put myself through so many scenarios where I felt inferior and I felt like an imposter and that I shouldn't be here, to the point that I kept showing myself that I can do this. Oh my God, I just did another one and it was bigger than last time. Oh my God, I can do this. And eventually it just gets to the point. I mean, still if I get up in front of people, I'm still shitting myself, but I've developed coping mechanisms to deal with it. And I'm trusting the experiences that I've had to guide the new experiences that I'm about to have. And so now my partner always comments on how if we go out somewhere, I'm happy to just talk to anybody, any random stranger that I see on the street or whatever. And it's because I've been through all these experiences where I've been up on stage in front of like 1,000 people, talking to one person, a random stranger. It's nothing. And that's just a trust that I've developed by, you know, just keep pushing myself to do the thing I'm afraid of.
Yeah. So your faith and trust in your ability to connect transcends to the way you engage with other people as well. Like how you connect to people from the stage, you see that translate to the way that you connect with people at parties or when you see them. And that's just based on your experiences. You've built that faith and trust in yourself and your ability to do that through your experiences, right? Yeah. So it's so similar to what we talk about with, I guess, but in the perspective of God, about that faith and trust in what he's done for us as well. And so now when you see a setback, you're like, oh, holy shit, this sucks. Shouldn't say holy shit in a podcast, but like, but you know, like shit, this sucks. But then the moment you're like what we talked about, like, oh, I survived every other problem I've ever faced. Like, you know, so.
Can I add one more thing to that?
Yeah, go for it.
One of my old acting teachers, and we found out things after the fact that the motivation was probably for a different reason. But when we used to go to acting class, we always used to, we're doing a specific technique where you'd have to bring an activity to do, and it had to be almost impossible to do. So it gave you an urgency to do it. So then when someone came to pull you away from it, you had emotion to bring to the action. His big thing was that he tried to convince everybody at least one time in the class, your activity should involve being naked. And like I said, there are a few things we found out later that were like, oh, okay, that makes sense. But his theory was that if you do it naked once, the next time and the next 100 times you do it, you'll be shitting yourself as you're about to step onto stage, but you'll remember, oh, remember that time I did it naked though? And how freaking scared I was?
So you guys actually got naked?
I never did.
You sure?
Yeah, I guess that's why I was behind the camera, not acting. But some people did, man. Some people walked out there naked just to push their fear.
And the dude's in prison now, right?
He's disappeared. I don't know where he is.
You know what that reminds me of? There's another great author called Steve Magnus, and he's got the quote, and that just full reminded me of this. And it says, you don't get that bump in confidence unless you have done something to earn it. And I really love that.
Yeah.
And, you know, sometimes you going through those, again, it's all interpretation, how you use it. You can either use the trauma to cripple you, or you can use it to build and grow.
It's a badge of honor.
You know, and I think that's awesome. I want to hear off tape a little bit more about this.
Yeah,
this teacher.
We'll do the rated R version of the podcast, and we can hear the whole story. Adam's OnlyFans. We'll tag it at the end of the podcast on the show notes.
That's why you shaved your head, so no one will recognize you anymore.
Yeah, I used to have flowing locks like you boys.
But you know, when you look at every experience you ever faced, would you change any of it?
No.
You wouldn't, right? Because
No, I wouldn't.
And I look at it too, man. I'm like, I'm really proud of who I am today. I've still got so much to learn and grow. You know what I mean? Like so much, like there's so much experience I need to, I guess, engage with and develop and learn and grow. And I think I'm going to die learning and growing. Yeah. But when I look back at everything that's happened, I wouldn't be doing this podcast with you.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be sitting here talking about this.
The same.
I wouldn't be running Soulflex. I wouldn't be able to do it justice the way I did. And you know, like I taught at a school for almost a decade before I started Soulflex. And sometimes people ask me, oh, do you wish you did this straight after school and just started this business straight after school? And you know, you'd be 15 years in with the business, imagine like where you'd be. And I'm like, no, I wouldn't, because it wouldn't be what it is. I wouldn't be able to serve my, no pun intended, serve my clients and my customers the way that I can now if I did it when I was 20 with the limited experience that I had.
I agree.
Yeah.
Man, I'm the same. You know, the very first time I experienced anxiety and OCD as an adult, I was like 23 years old, and I remember someone asking me, they're like, what's it feel like? And I'm like, put it this way. I go, if someone had said to me, we'll cut both your legs off and we'll make this pain go away, I would have said yes. And then I remember saying that, and then upon reflection later of years down the track, I was like, oh no, I was so happy for that experience because of all the things that I learned. And then when it kind of came back again with a vengeance, you know, 18 months ago, I hated it when it happened. I was struggling to accept it. I was in that headspace of, why me? Why is this happening right now? Why can't my life be normal again? You know, I was fearless before, but really that was a mask, like we spoke about last week. And this experience now is allowing me, this anxiety spell that I'm going through now is allowing me to rebuild my foundations and carve a new path with God, with my faith, with my religion, and with my family and my children. So in many ways, it's saved me.
Yeah.
And as painful as it has been, and it can be, no, man, I'm happy for this experience. And I'm falling in love again with who I am and who I'm meant to be. And these moments are slowly starting to build that skill of complete faith and trust in something. And yeah, it's just funny because I'm a very, I wear my heart on my sleeve, man. Like, people know exactly how I'm feeling. Like, you boys will send me a message. You can tell when I'm having an off day because I'll get a message from you guys. I'll be like, hey man, are you okay? Is everything good? And I'm like, fuck. I'm like, I must have like been shown how I was feeling too much, but I don't care about that anymore. I'm proud of that, man. I'm happy to show who I am and what I'm going through. And I'm truly using this moment now to build and grow beautiful things.
Yeah.
Right now I feel like I'm building a garden and I'm laying the soil and the foundation. And sometimes you got to do the heavy lifting, man. But it leads to such a beautiful, beautiful life. One filled with so much true trust and confidence in oneself and one's skills and ability, but because God has given you those opportunities. And no, I wouldn't change anything, man. And it would be disingenuous to say, anything else.
And it's a really beautiful analogy, like about the garden, right? The Bible uses so many analogies about gardens and allowing, the flowers to blossom, the fruit to bear. But, when you're gardening and when you're planting a garden, what do you need? You need patience. You need faith. You need trust. You got to just do all the right things.
Yeah.
And then just have the patience and allow the seasons do and nature to do what it does. And that's a really beautiful way to see life, right? Because, I almost look at my life as like a game of chess. It's kind of like in jiu-jitsu. Like jiu-jitsu is like a game of chess. That's the beautiful thing about jiu-jitsu, man. There's so many life analogies with it. But life is like a game of chess, but we're not the ones playing it. God's playing chess.
Yeah.
He's moving our pieces for us, right? But the moment that we try to start taking over and playing chess, that's where we fuck up, right? Because we don't know how to play. This is the first time Johnny Lobos is experiencing life. This is the first time Shane Pereira, Adam, is experiencing life.
Yeah.
We've never played this game before. Our souls may have, but not us as humans. So when we sit back and allow God to just move the pieces, that's when things will work out. That's when we win this game of life. But then the moment we get in our heads and try to control it and start to take over, thinking that we know how to play it better than God knows how to play it, and allow control to happen, we're not letting go, we're not accepting, we're not surrendering, we're not going with the flow.
Correct.
That's when things go pear-shaped. Well, that's when, it might feel good at the time, right? Because as humans, we're impatient. We want things to happen now. We want to see the results now. We want to see that evidence, right? Like we talked at the start, we want to see it now. But the thing is, we're in our 30s. Most people live to 80, 90. So we think, time's running out. But God's timeless.
Yeah.
God has been here since before creation. He'll be here after creation. He's an energy that's just timeless. And he's not in any rush. He's playing this game of chess. How do you lose a game of chess? You rush.
Correct.
How do you lose a role in jiu-jitsu? You rush.
Yep.
Right? The moment that we just sit back and allow God to play chess for us, and we just sit back and be the pieces that move for him, that's when life just starts to simplify.
I love that. I love that, man. It's true, man. It's really true. And I think a really interesting exercise any religious person can do, and I mean whether they're Christian, whether they're Islamic, whether they're Sikh, whatever religion you are, I think one of the bravest things you can do is to truly ask yourself the question, why do I believe in what I believe? And is it because I was raised this way? Is it because it's built into my culture? Like, what is it exactly that has led me to this faith? And what are the reasons why I believe it? What is the evidence for me to believe this faith? And it is really scary to do that because you have to investigate for yourself. But at the same time, whatever conclusion you come to, I'm all for like respecting that as well. And like something I hate seeing sometimes, and I'm guilty of sometimes watching these videos, is you'll see these videos of, it says, you know, Christian man demolishes atheist in 30 seconds, or atheist man demolishes Christian in 10 seconds, or Muslim highlights why the Trinity is not real in 30 seconds. And it's just like this silly game that we play because we all have different, I don't know, perspectives in life, and we have different types of evidences that we need. And ultimately, you can have like, so like I wrote all these notes down, like, so for me, like in terms of Christianity, you know, you have, okay, the idea that a man called Jesus existed. You know, historians all agree, well, pretty much all agree, and scholars, that he existed. And then you have, okay, what did he do to kind of showcase that he was the Son of God, the Son of Man that he said that he was? He performed miracles, you know, healing the blind, the lepers, raising Lazarus from the dead. And it's like, okay, well then how can I believe in this? And then you have all the eyewitness testimonies of his miracles and of his resurrection. And it's like, okay, well, what else do I need? And it's like, okay, well then the Gospels were written, you know, 40 to 70 years after his death. It's like, okay, what more do I need? And it all ultimately trickles down, in my opinion, to personal experience. And that's what I feel like you've been talking a lot about today. And that's what I kind of experienced. And so when I surrendered to the idea and I prayed to God, and then all these things started happening in my life, that was enough for me. And that was like, okay, I don't need to test this anymore. This is real for me, and I have all the evidence that I need. But I also sympathize with people who don't believe in God. Say if they're an atheist, or they might be agnostic, and they're like, you know what? I don't believe in God for reasons A to Z. And I'd be like, okay, cool, man. Like, I totally get that. And if that makes sense to you, like, that's cool as well. And I'm fine with that. You know, we're all on our own unique journey. And again, to your point from last episode, that, you know, this is a very personal journey, spirituality. It's very personal and unique. And I believe that we find our own faith in different stages in life. And I'm okay with that, you know?
Yeah, 100%. And like, you know, those videos you talked about, like, you know, atheist destroys Christian in 30 seconds, whatever, Christian destroys atheist. That's the whole problem with religion.
Yeah.
That's the problem with religion. And like, that's why I pulled away from the church for ages. And I found spirituality brought me back to God. Because the problem with religion as an institution is that it divides. It makes it a competition.
Yes.
Right? It's us versus them versus us. No. Like, when you look at religion as spirituality, it's not meant to divide, it's meant to unite.
Correct.
Right? And the thing is, like, you know, Jesus didn't die on the cross to start religion. He died on the cross to unite, to build a relationship with him, to allow us to build a relationship with him.
Correct.
He didn't do it so that we could start religions and start lots of different denominations. No.
Yeah.
There's one reason why he died, is so that we could understand how to form a relationship with God. So that we, as humans, could understand that.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's the problem with it. And that's where I think a lot of times, so like, you know, even talks about Adam, like how he sees faith is exactly the same way as how we see faith.
Correct.
And this is like non-Christian Christian. You know what I mean? And I agree wholeheartedly. Like, you know, listeners will be talking about us talking about faith, but then hopefully they'll listen to our conversations and our experiences and just maybe open their mind up to their own experiences,
Correct.
right? Because we only know what we experience. We only know what we see. And I think that, again, going back to this game of chess, God moves everyone's pieces differently. He plays every different game differently, right? If you had the same game, everyone's going to know how it's played. It's going to be very easy to beat. But he plays everyone's game of chess very differently and in a unique way. And a beautiful, I can't remember where I heard this. It was, I think it might have been Georgienko's podcast, and I think he might have said it. I don't know if it's him or not, but I just want to credit whoever it was. But he talked about how God is always a gentleman. He's always knocking on the door. He never kicks the door open. He never breaks in. And he described the devil as a thief. They'll sneak into the window. They'll find any open door to creep in and instill fear and doubt and uncertainty and worry and sin into you. But God is a gentleman. He'll just knock and wait for you to open.
And to add to that point, last episode again, you mentioned about the reason why we hide sometimes who we are, like in the darkness, rather than the light, which exposes everything. Those behaviors that sneak in, like let's just say you're on your path, on your journey, and those behaviors that break in and sneak in, I guess you'd call them the devil. They're those behaviors that are all around coping, checking and controlling for that uncertainty. They're the ones that are putting that, they sneak in, they break in, they instill that fear into you so that you bite. So you'd be like, I don't like what's going on right now. I need to control this. And then you fall for its plan. And I agree, man. Like I'm 39 years old. Like I don't have time for, I don't want to say like I don't have time for people's bullshit. It's not that, but I don't have time for just like nonsense.
Yeah.
Before, back in the day, if someone was, talking shit about religion or about God, I just don't engage. I just leave it. And because I'm like, what good is it going to do to just start an argument with someone and try to come across as like this righteous, religious person? I'm just like, I kind of sit back now and I'm like, and I feel sorry for people like that sometimes. And then I do the same if there's other Christians that are being overzealous and over judgmental, overcritical, I might say something to them because we share a belief. But, I don't really have time for that. I'm all about, again, like what you said about uniting us and about, just loving one another and just being like humble, good people, man. And that's what I'm trying to like instill, say, in my daughter, Izzy, and my son, Conan. And because Izzy goes to a Christian school, a local school. And I was talking to you, Adam, about this. And it's just, I don't really like the way that they're going about, faith or belief in God, because it's just, to me, I'm not going to name the school, but it's an indoctrination. Like they just
put it in the show notes.
They're just like forcing all this stuff down, into my kid's head.
Yeah.
And she's 6 years old, man. And I always tell her, because I'm telling you, man, like, and my daughter, like, she'll make a mistake and sometimes she can be a little bit anxious also, and she'll like apologize heaps. And I'm like, hey, baby, you don't have to apologize so much. It's okay. We all make mistakes. None of us are perfect. And she's like, yeah, that's right, Daddy. Because remember, the only thing that's perfect is God. Like, that's her immediate response. And I'm like, Izzy, you don't have to worry about that. Like, I could see that's like an automatic reflex response. And that's my problem with religion. It's like, if this is an evidence-based faith, how are you meant to teach that to a 6-year-old? She's not going to understand it. And she doesn't need to understand that now. You need to allow these children to grow, to become independent thinkers, build trust and confidence in them, in their skills, that they've got brains and that they're rational and that they can make their own judgments later on. And that's how I feel that you push people away from faith rather than inviting them in. And I tell Izzy now, because we're seriously considering about taking her out of that school. And I say to her, Izzy, this is the only thing I want you to worry about. This is what Mummy and Daddy want you to worry about. When you go to school, we want you to focus on your maths, on your reading, on playing with your friends, and having a really good time. That's all I want you to worry about. Nothing else. I'm like, are you a good person? What are your values? And because I was worried about how much she was worrying about all this biblical stuff. And so, because I would always be reading my Bible at night when I'd be putting her to sleep. And I've kind of stopped that because I don't want her to worry, oh, my dad's always reading the Bible. It's about God. Okay, I've got to be thinking about God all the time. She's just a little girl. She doesn't need that. So I stopped that. And I'm just getting her to focus on the values. And so whenever I do speak to her about religious things, it will be in the context of Jesus. And I'm like, baby, this is what you need to know. Jesus loves you. And Jesus loved everyone. And Jesus wants you to take care of people and be a good human being through your actions. And that's by being nice to people. That's by being polite. That's by being courageous. That's by sharing and giving.
Yeah.
That's all you need to worry about, baby. Nothing else. And yeah, so the thing that me and Rose now, kind of contemplating is that, do we pull her out of school and risk her, losing her friends and then experiencing some bad stuff and then going to a new school and having to make friends? But then I do worry about her being in a school that's bombarding us so much with so much of this stuff. And I'm like, she only believes it, guys, because she's 6 years old, she's impressionable, and because it's coming from an authority figure, from a teacher. That's why she believes it.
Yeah.
Like, you're just trying to build like this little army with them, and what you're building in them is blind faith. You're not building true faith in them. And so, I was just touching on your point about the problems with religion and churches and all these different denominations. That for me is a big problem.
Yeah.
And so as a parent in this world now, it's like, okay, well, how do I not push her away from God, but at the same time don't force it down her throat? And I think that's by having faith in my God that he's brought me to this realization, to this awareness, okay? And so that I teach her about values. What are Christian values? What are some good values to have? She's a smart girl. And when she's at a certain age and she can look at the evidence for herself, will it be enough? I don't know. But that's on her and her own personal journey. So yeah.
Deep down, would you be disappointed if she did go a different path in the future?
I would be more disappointed if she only believed in God because it got indoctrinated in her.
That's beautiful. Yeah.
And I would be more happy if she didn't believe in God, but it was by her own choice, by her own research and her using her own logic and sense. But I believe, actually, I don't know what's going to happen. I can't guess it.
But you're right, man. A lot of people have trouble connecting with their own intuition and their internal guiding system because they feel so much, I guess, one, it comes down to validation, making try to impress other people, whether it's your parents or whatever, trying to fit in or whatever. But they are so layered by other people's expectations that they don't know how to follow their own internal guiding system. And really, your internal guiding system is God's voice. So what we're doing is we're blocking people from listening to God's voice by yelling to them, telling them, you need to believe in this, you need to believe in that, because then now they're not listening to God's voice, listen to your voice.
Correct.
Or that teacher's voice, or that principal's voice. And it's like,
facts.
That person, I think we were talking about this as well, that person that stands outside 7-Eleven in Queen Street, yelling out about the Bible. I see you there every week. And I love God. I value my relationship with Christ more than anything in this world. But even when I hear it, I'm like, shut the fuck up. It's so annoying. Yeah, and it's a repellent.
Correct.
People, and it gives Christianity and God a bad name.
It really does.
Yeah.
It really does. And that's why sometimes I see these highlights on Instagram come up of people holding up signs outside abortion clinics or outside universities. And I'm just like, man, you're just going about this the wrong way. Your message is so wrong.
No, you can't tell people to have faith.
No.
Faith is an acquired skill.
Correct.
They will acquire it over time. They're not going to acquire it if someone's yelling at them saying, you need to have faith.
Man,
it doesn't work like that.
And it's even like praying. Praying is a skill. Learning how to pray. Yeah. Because you're building a relationship with God. And relationships are complicated and they take time to form and build. And you need to explain that to people. You just can't say, you're going to hell if you don't repent right now and if you don't say sorry and all these things. And because again, to all those people that are out there, they might think they believe in God, but what does the word belief even mean? And it all ties down again to actions. Your actions actually tell you what you truly believe in. Some people might go to church on Sundays and go in a nice tie and dress up and they're singing all the biblical songs and reading all the Psalms. But then if Monday to Saturday, they're watching porn, they're fantasizing about other females or other males, if they're stealing money from people, if they're not being kind, if they're being disingenuous, if they're making people feel like shit, I'm like, so do you really believe in God? And so it's a funny thing. And then just going back to the point with Izzy, as a parent, what are my responsibilities? My responsibilities are to take care of my daughter and give her the best possible life I can. And none of that includes indoctrinating something in her.
Yeah.
But my responsibility is to keep her safe, to make sure that there's food on the table, for her to have a nice warm bed to sleep in, a house, and 2 parents who love themselves, who show that, and who teach her the most beautiful values in the world based off Jesus. But not to say to her, you need to believe in this because I'm telling you, and then just go, you're going to go to hell if you don't believe in God. And that's eternal, and it's a fire pit.
Yeah.
I am just now using the fuel of fear to change her mindset on something rather than love and compassion and kindness, everything that Jesus spoke about. Because at the end of the day, the Gospels of Jesus, his teachings, he's not talking to children. He's talking to adults. And that's a very big difference. And so, yeah, I don't know, man. I just see things differently, and I don't even know yet what we're going to do with her school, but I'm not impressed.
And you know what, though? But like, you just made me think of something as well. The reason why people Bible bash and people scream out that you need to have faith in God, it comes from a place of desperation.
Yeah.
Right? They're desperate for people to either maintain their faith or acquire their faith. They're desperate. And by doing that, you're not having faith in God.
Nah.
You're not allowing God to play chess and do what he does. You're thinking that, God's not going to guide your family and guide your children. I need to do it. You know what I mean? But by you stepping back and allowing things to pan out for your kids the way they're meant to is having faith in God.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And as men, we feel like we need to look after our loved ones, right? And we should. We do. That's our role, right? I know that, I feel like I always want to protect Lorna. I want to give her the best life. You want to give your wife and kids the best life. But in the end, we have to really humble ourselves and know that one person can look after your family way better than you can, and that's God. Do you know what I mean? And for me too as well, sometimes when, again, look, Lorna's anxiety when we hear things outside the house and you see that fear creep in, I'll always go outside and check and whatnot, but then we come back and I say, let's pray, because I can only do so much. God can look after us way more than I ever can. And it's such a, it's such a powerful thing to say that, because you want to be the person that provides and looks after, but then really it's his game of chess. We're just pawns, right?
And to that point about those people that preach so loudly, and it reminds me of this other quote from another great author, Brad Stolberg, where he says, arrogance is loud and it comes from insecurity, where confidence is quiet and it comes from evidence.
Think about our lives when, you and I were so similar back when we were trying to be alpha males in our lives. We didn't know each other at the time.
Yeah.
I feel like we probably would have butt heads. We probably wouldn't have got along if we met each other at that time.
I agree.
But when you're the most insecure as a man is when you're the loudest. You're trying to be the biggest in the room. You're trying to be the toughest in the room. You need to show people you're tough because you're scared, because you're weak, because you're vulnerable, right? But then real strong men don't need to yell out and let people know from a mountaintop how strong they are.
Correct.
That's it.
I love that, my man. I reckon that was great. I reckon anything that you want to add to wrap it up, bro?
No, I had notes about the law of attraction and manifesting and stuff and how it links to faith, but I think that might be a whole new episode.
I think that would be an amazing episode, because you know what? That is something that I've heard you speak a lot about, the law of attraction and manifesting, or manifestation, and I don't know much about it, and I reckon that'd be good.
I'll touch on it a bit, but we'll do a whole episode about it. But basically, I think I was telling you, I was doing that law of attraction certification, and for my clients, I'm coaching a lot of people with law of attraction, manifesting, and as I was studying the course, I was like, shit, I was writing notes because I was like, this is just straight from the Bible. And because Lorna and I want to start running manifestation courses.
Awesome.
But then, and the other day, and something inside me was like, I can't start this. And we have some notes on our whiteboard in the study that we, and planned it out and everything. And the other day, Lorna was like, you put it on hold. When are we going to start this course? And I'm like, I've been wanting to talk to you. Something doesn't feel right within me, because I feel like the concept of the law of attraction is just, it's really monetizing God's words. And we'll do an episode and I'll talk about the links of it. And I told Lorna, I go, I'm not going to do this law of attraction manifestation course for people unless we link it to the Bible.
Okay.
And we might not get a lot of people, and it might repel a lot of people, but I'd rather just do it through the Bible. And so now we've kind of gone back to the drawing board and we're going to start this course again, but link manifesting with the Bible, because there's so many notes about manifesting and law of attraction that just come straight from God's words, but instead of God, they replace the word of the universe.
I love it.
You know what I mean? So that's something that we'll touch on in a future episode, I think.
Man, it was an honor like always, bro. Thank you for the amazing conversation. And to summarize, faith is not the belief in something with no evidence. It's the opposite. It's the belief in something through confidence and trust. So, man, thank you so much, bro.
That's it, man. And for people listening as well, if there's anything that you're going through and you just want the support of a like-minded community, please jump on the website or message the Sir Podcast Instagram page. Let us know what you want us to pray for as well. And, we'll start doing that in the podcast too. Even if you want it to be anonymous, specify that you want it to be anonymous as well. And, when two or more gather in his name, your prayers are answered. So, yeah.
I love that, my man.
Put it out there.
My man. Awesome. Thank you, bro. Cheers.